All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dana Render, and I'm the Director of Education. And you are joining us on day 3 of Georgia Arbor Week, and we are continuing celebrating that with Ask the Arborist. And that is a new monthly talk that we will have so that you can ask all of your tree curiosities. And you can submit those questions ahead of time, and we'll also be taking some of those questions live this afternoon. So, if you are new to the Trees Atlanta community, our mission is to protect and improve and grow Atlanta's urban forest through direct planting, conservation efforts, and education. Today, we have 2 arborists who are going to be speaking with us. We have Christie Bryant, who is the founder and president of Speaking for the Trees. And then we also have Tabitha Schwartz, who is our data and logistics manager at Trees Atlanta. And as you are listening to this presentation, if you end up having questions, please use the Q&A button that is at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will moderate those questions after we get through the ones that were submitted previously. And you can also use our chat feature. If you, at the end of this presentation, you'll get an email that has a survey. We want to make sure that we can serve you to the best of our ability. So if you have other topics that you're interested in learning in our education series, or if you have other just questions in general about the organization, feel free to let us know and give us feedback. And always, you can find us at treesatlanta.org and on social media. Please feel free to look us up there, and you can find all kinds of other events and things that we're getting into. And so without further ado, let me introduce Tabitha and Christie. If you guys would go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'll start. My name's Tabitha Schwartz. I'm the logistics data manager, like Dana said, at Trees Atlanta. I've been working for Trees Atlanta for 6.5, going on 7 years shortly. I started on the urban forestry crew, and then I started leading the crew. I started doing tree plantings, and really have a lot of knowledge on like younger trees, what, we've seen at Trees Atlanta, what's healthy, what's surviving, what's, really doing well with that, and have a lot of hands-on experience with dealing with those trees. Looking forward to talking with you guys and answering any questions and helping you in any way. I have been an arborist since 2017, and it's just been kind of a wonderful time getting to know the trees and learning a lot more about it, and happy to share my knowledge.
So, hey, I'm Christie Bryant. I'm the president of Speaking for the Trees. I am also the current president for the Georgia Arborist Association. This is hopefully my last year. 3 years in a row is enough. I'm also actively involved in recreational competitive tree climbing competitions and stuff. I'm learning to climb, but I'm very involved in helping set up these. My passion is mature tree and educating people about mature trees. So I think Tabitha are exactly meeting each other right in the middle and can answer everything you can throw at us today. That's basically it. Thanks for caring about trees.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, for getting us started there. We're going to jump right in. We have several questions that were submitted ahead of time, so we're going to start there. The first one, I live in the city and have deer. What native trees are most deer resistant? How can you protect young trees from deer browsing? And how can you protect trees from falling due to deer rub?
Yeah, I'll start. We can send a list and I'll send it to it in the chat as Christie's kind of speaking. We've had a lot of trees planted in Brook Run Park up in Dunwoody, and this has been kind of an issue up there. Not to mention we've had, a lot of instances of beavers taking down our trees, and a lot of animals love to interact with them. My recommendation for this is just kind of creating a barrier so that the deer or other animals can't get to the tree. So this can be as simply as a wired like chicken fence around the canopy of the tree so that the deers can't reach over it, just kind of pulling it back a few feet from the fence. Or we've done in Brook Run Park kind of a triangle, kind of staking around the tree and then using chicken wire around it, or some just wire, just to really prevent the deer from coming up. I think deer really use it. I equate it to like the smaller trees and younger trees as like a toothpick to clean their antlers off and getting, doing the rubbing. So just preventing the deer from getting near the trees and just creating a block. You do kind of want it, solid enough that they can't knock it down. I don't believe they're that aggressive though. But definitely just creating kind of a barrier around the tree enough around where, it's kind of saving the stuff that you want to save. So whether it's the fruit on the tree or rubbing, just creating a barrier around it. Christie, do you have any recommendations?
So I really don't have much to add. I really don't. This is definitely your wheelhouse. I used to work, when I was a landscaper, I did a lot of work in exactly that area. My office was in Dunwoody, so I had a lot of people on that. So back then, my focus was really keeping my flowers in the ground more so than dealing with tree stuff. But I don't remember a whole lot of tree damage, but I think it's because they were eating my flowers.
Yeah. And Dana, is there any follow-up in the chat? Are there follow-up questions to this that we could answer?
Yes, so there's not a follow-up question to that particular question, but there's some questions coming in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next one that was pre-submitted. I have an 80-year-old post oak that has a massive orange fungus growing on a large bough overhanging the street. And it says this often gets struck by large trees or trucks and vans, and it seems healthy, though there are a few dead limbs that have dropped. What's the best way to deal with this?
So I guess I'll take this one. So first off, post oaks are not the best compartmentalizers, so we never want to try to remove large branches if we can help it. However, that orange mushroom is indicative of decay in that branch. So I really want you to, it's going to need to be pruned because we know there's decay in it. That's what the mushroom is telling us. But I really want you to use a company that has the salesperson is an arborist, and I want you to make sure that the work order is written up in a way that he's communicating to the crew exactly how to prune that tree.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw in support for Christie. She's got a consulting firm, and one of this kind of question is really great to see the photo of the tree too, and to know kind of what's going on with the tree, and even to come out on site. So Christie is definitely an amazing connection with Trees Atlanta to come out, and she'll do a consultation for this person as well.
Yeah, thanks. I love to teach people about trees.
Cool. All right. Question number 3. Let's go with this one. Is wild black cherry a good street tree if no one parks under it? How about pecan trees?
Cherry trees do say pretty small, but I think the flowering trees, what we've seen at Trees Atlanta as a street tree, they need to be really hardy. They need to be able to survive that urban environment. It definitely depends on the neighborhood. If you're living in a really high trafficky neighborhood, I wouldn't put something so sensitive in that space. I would put something a little bit stronger. Pecans do grow pretty big. I don't believe they should be a street tree. They would make a really great front yard tree though. Yeah, Christie, do you have anything to add to that?
Agreed. So the native cherries are only 20, 25-year-old trees before they really start dying back, and they really create a lot of dead branches, which is not something we want in a street tree. Secondly, as far as the pecan goes, even if there's not cars under it, if we're a street tree, we're going to have something under us, pedestrian traffic or something. And so the last thing we want is pecans falling in the fall. Also, pecans, if not properly pruned, have a huge propensity for losing large branches in the fall or the late summer. So I would say, no, I would agree with you 100%. Pecan needs to be in a big area in a front yard.
Yeah, and to go off too, we have cherry trees. They're Japanese variety planted in right-of-way strips. They do pretty well, but again, they are ones that we have to look after a lot more. Beautiful trees, definitely support planting them. I think having them in as a street tree in that right of way may not be ideal. This is another great kind of understory tree you could put underneath your pecan in that front yard or your backyard, but I would steer away from planting it in a really busy right of way. Now, in the neighborhoods that don't see as much traffic, could probably get away with it if you have a nice wide strip with it too. Yeah.
So someone has a question. How do you get into this field?
Well, I want to answer sarcastically. If you want to, you probably shouldn't. No, I'm kidding. This industry has served me amazingly. There are so many ways to enter this industry. I came in, I was a landscaper. And then I was a landscaper in the drought of 07 and the economy of 08. And so I just got my arborist certification to boost my resume, and then stumbled into the tree world. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. You can get in by going to work for a tree company. You can get in by helping Trees Atlanta plant trees as one of their employees. Like, you can enter in by running a bobcat. You can enter in by becoming a plant health care technician for a large tree company. I mean, there's so many things to do inside of the tree industry. It's astounding. So, my advice would be focus on where you think you want to be, and then go out and start asking questions.
Yeah, I have a unique way of how I got connected to Trees Atlanta. I was actually doing AmeriCorps after college, and started volunteering for a site that was doing restoration work. That led to me doing another year of AmeriCorps in Florida, doing restoration work on invasive species, removing them from state parks in Florida. And then that launched me into Trees Atlanta because I had that restoration work experience. They were like, oh, come join our crew. And then from there, Trees Atlanta is an amazing nonprofit where we really support our people becoming arborists. So, to actually become an arborist too is to study. I think, Christie, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's you need to have a degree in the field. So you can either go through and get your landscape architect or botany degree or something related there. My environmental studies degree did not pass, FYI. So I had to go the other route and work for a company that does this kind of work for, I think it's 2 or maybe 3 years before you can take the test. 3 years. Okay, so 3 years, and then you can take the test. It's open. You pay a fee to do it, and then if you pass it, you become a certified arborist. There are different levels on top of that you can become more specialized, like Christie's doing. Tree climbing is a different license that you have to get. I'm not at all licensed to do that. So essentially, to become an arborist, you need 3 years of work experience and then take the test. Or you need a schooling and I believe a year of work experience, and then you can take the test. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute there. All right, we had another question to come in. How should I proceed when a big tree has exposed wounds and probably becoming hollow inside? This is happening with my willow. I can notice some dead branches on top and the bark is cracking too much.
So you really need to have that tree looked at by a certified arborist. A healthy tree, a tree's job is to get its green in the sun. So if we have a tree and the top and the tips of the branches do not have leaves or in the winter buds, then we know that we have a problem. If added to that problem, we have exposed, the bark is the skin of the tree. So if the bark is gone, we have exposed wood. The tree can try to compartmentalize it, but if we're seeing that when added to the tip dieback in the top, I'm really going to say you really need to have this tree checked out by a professional.
Yeah, I would also second that by saying it depends on where the tree is located. Is it a risk to your house or your cars or people around? Can you let the tree, if it is declining and it's naturally dying, can you let it, die there? That is still a beneficial thing for our environment. Animals still survive in decaying and dying trees. They use that as housing. There's still a benefit there for that. So should you remove the tree? get a certified arborist out there to do a further inspection on, you know, the health of the tree, where is it going? And then it's also like a risk assessment, like, is it okay if this tree dies in this location? Or is that going to cause a lot of damage to your property, or could it be a real risk to people around you? And then kind of weigh that, and then that's the decision at that point.
Awesome. All right, question number 6. I have a hackberry tree with limbs over my blueberry bushes and raised beds. By late summer, the infected tree drops honeydew sooty mold in the areas. Can the aphids be treated, or will they move on to another food source? Will it harm my garden and grass?
So yes, it absolutely will go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It will absolutely, it will cause harm over time because those plants are unable to photosynthesize, right? That green and sunshine is what makes how plants get their energy. So it can in time hurt them. However, I think everything you mentioned is deciduous, so they get to start next year with leaves without it. It's a simple systemic insecticide application that you can do on the tree, and you can do it yourself with over-the-counter stuff. There's indichlorprid type systemic pesticides that you can give to the tree. You need to do them what I recommend, and this is what I do, is I treat the hackberry 2 years, and then the 3rd year I bring in beneficial insects. So what we're trying to do is knock back that population enough so beneficial insects can hold it back. I also do not apply pesticides until after the hackberry is bloomed, because it is a native nectar source. So it's not something and there's research saying that systemics don't go into flowers, and then there's research saying that systemics do go into flowers. So I just choose to wait till after it's flowered and then treat it. Again, only 2 years, and hoping to get control with introducing either lacewings or ladybugs.
I have a follow-up question for you, Christy, on this. Do you see, when you treat these trees, are you seeing more success with a drench around the roots, or just an application on the bark?
So I like the drenches a lot better. They do take a minute to get up into the leaf, but it also takes basically 2 generations for the aphids to build up to the point where it's really an issue. So there's time to play. You know, the populations don't get gross until June.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a natural occurring thing. So aphids are okay if the population is kept at bay. So yeah, doing these treatments, or, getting your tree through the year, keeping it healthy and happy, can produce a better outcome. So sometimes, the populations get as large where you do feel like you need to treat it. But if you can do it, by keeping the tree healthy and, whatever that means, it could work as well.
Can you guys?
This is 99% of the time you were correct, but hackberries, they can be in the most perfect world, don't think that your hackberry isn't healthy because it has aphids. It's just like what they do. I mean, they just do. It's like they get 30 inches and start cracking. It's what they do. So don't think you're failing. But every other tree, she's right. If you're having aphids or scales and maples, get your tree healthy, right? But don't hackberries, just treat them. Or if you can tolerate them, don't treat them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was supporting too, Christy. Like, if you can tolerate it, if it's not too big deal, just let it do its thing. But yeah, if it's something you really want to treat, you can definitely do a treatment for it.
Yeah. So both of you mentioned some pesticide application terms. Could you talk about those a little bit more?
Yeah, so soil drenching is to take the pesticide on. I'll back up and just say every pesticide has a recommendation of how to use it in the label, and how what percentage you should apply, or like what kind of ratio you should do. It's in the label. Just follow it to spec. It's made to do what it's supposed to. So follow that label. Christy, I don't know if you know the specific pesticides for this issue. That's something I can definitely look up after this and send out some notes on. But a soil drench is to take it and take the pesticide in a diluted form and put it around the base of the tree, kind of in that root zone. And then what happens is it will soak down to those roots and the tree will suck it up and bring it up to the leaves. And that's what Christie was saying about it will take a while sometimes to get to the leaves. It could take a couple months. It's not something you would see death of the aphids immediately because the tree has to soak it in and bring it up. The application to the bark, it would be simply taking, again, the right balance and concentration and applying it to the bark with a spray, or we've seen like paintbrushes done as well, and applying it that way. And then it kind of soaks in to the tree. I support what Christie was saying by doing the soil drench because there's a lot less contact. In my opinion, there's a lot more contact with the bark of the tree than it is with the soil, and it soaks into the soil faster. And it gets into the tree, I believe, in a better rate than trying to go through the bark layer to get into that cambium and phloem and xylem and whatnot. But yeah, those are those.
Christie, did you want to add anything else to that?
No, I mean, she's exactly right. Just again, it's always, we don't want, it's less is more, and there are always consequences, right? Always unintended consequences. So if the tree is in an area where it doesn't bother you, then please don't treat it. I treat trees and I talk people out of it all the time because I'm like, dude, if it's not over your deck, then don't treat it. But then, hackberries do tend to be, because they're such a native presence in Atlanta, they tend to be on property boundaries, and I live in Grant Park, so they're always between two houses and over two people's back decks, and by August you sit down and you stick to your chair. Or they tend to be over your driveway, so you're washing your car every other day. So those are the situations where you're going to have to treat. But again, tolerance is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So question number 7, we just had a serviceberry planted, and there appears to be a dual leader. This person is very new to pruning, and they took our pruning 101 class. So if anyone's interested, we do offer that. I've heard that serviceberry should not be pruned or should be pruned lightly. So they wanted to check to see what they should do. She was thinking about a reduction cut on one of the leaders, but wanted to check first.
Yeah, if you guys take our pruning 101 class, you'll know after that it's really important not to overstress the tree by pruning too much. We keep to the 25% rule, so do not prune over 25% of that tree. You may, with this serviceberry, want it to grow out a little bit more so that when you do cut or reduce a limb, it's a less percentage. But you're weighing the options of how fast will this dual leader grow. Is it going to do something further to impede the structure of the tree? So reducing it back, I think, is probably the best option for this young tree. And of course, keep it to the bark collar and not go into, or not just hack it, but keep, reduce it back to the proper spot, which we can go into more detail, but that is something you do learn in the pruning 101 course. And I do recommend taking that with us. If you're going to start pruning your trees, it's a really great way to understand the physiology of a tree and how it works with the pruning.
So when I read this question, I went real fast and just did a Google image search of serviceberry, because I deal with big oaks and mature trees more than anything. And do this yourself, go to Google Images and Google it. And it looks to me like most of these trees are all multi-trunk trees. So it may be that that's supposed to be that way. So, without seeing it, I don't know. But serviceberries are very small trees at maturity. They're 20-25 feet. Because of that, they can put out these multi-trunks and be safe, whereas a poplar could never put out 5 trunks and stand all together. Does that make sense? Because they have to withstand winds. A serviceberry at 25 feet doesn't. So therefore, it's very common for them to be a multi-stem tree. So you may just have a multi-stem tree. I would be happy if you want to email me a picture of it. I would be happy to help you. But I'm not that concerned. It sounds to me like it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right. I will also support, we have on our website a tree care request form. So if you guys are looking at pruning your trees that Trees Atlanta have planted, we're happy to come out and do some pruning for you. Just submit it through our tree care request form on our website, and we'll get that on our list to come out and do for you too. So if this is a tree that we planted, we're happy to come prune it. If it is a tree that we did not plant and you still have questions about it, this is a good way to, trigger us to help you with it, and probably recommend Christie over here to come out and look at it for you.
And we did put, I'll put Christie's and Tabitha's emails in the chat for you guys if you want to contact them after this event. All right, our next question. Do you have any suggestions for plants that control erosion? How do you control or stop the roots from spreading?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think it's site specific for sure. Go ahead, Christie.
With the root question, we do not reduce roots. The roots that you can see, we have 2 root systems on trees, just for fast facts. The roots that you can see that have they look like underground branches, their job is to hold up the tree. And the tree talks to them and is like, hey guys, I'm taking the wind from this direction. Could we put some more roots on this side? So we do not remove roots without an arborist involved and on-site doing root reduction, period, end of subject. If they're exposed, and I deal with a lot of this, and the next question is going to be, can I bring dirt back in and put on top of them? Well, again, did it erode in the last storm, or has it been eroding for 5 years? My suggestion is always covered soil won't erode, and trees really love mulch. So you can go under and put 4 inches of a really heavy, like right off the back of a tree truck, real heavy chunks of hardwood mulch, go as deep as 4 inches. And that usually handles most erosion issues. The soil doesn't erode in a forest because the leaves are there to protect to protect the soil from the raindrops coming down. And then there's 6 inches of tree litter under the trees that has to get to before it can get to the dirt to erode it. So just repeat what the forest does, and usually that handles it.
Yeah, and to control erosion and what plants to plant to control erosion, I think, if you're following what the forest looks like with an overstory canopy and an understory canopy and a ground cover, if you're following that, that should help control erosion. What specific plants, I think it depends on the sunlight availability, what's going on in your site. Again, we're happy to look at that and send us your questions and your pictures of the site specific to this one. But if you're missing one of those layers, you might have more erosion. So kind of making sure that you've got those natural layers of overstory, understory, and ground layer can help with that. So a quick fix is the mulch, just to have that ground layer, but could you plant something else there to help it as well?
Do you have any specific plants that you would recommend?
I would say it depends on what's there right now. There's definitely some trees that love more water. There's some trees that love less water. Planting an oak tree or tulip poplar, river birch will soak up some water for sure. So if that's the issue, bringing that, but it depends on the site, honestly, like what's going on, what's already there, what niches you're missing. We do have our native plant sale coming up to selfishly plug something. Our native plant sale is throughout March and in-person sale in April. So I would recommend going on there, seeing if you're missing those lower, smaller understory trees and plants, to reach out to us and see what we've got to offer there. We also have our tree sale in September and October now, since they're online. So you can find some both overstory and understory canopy trees then as well. And I'm actively working on those plant descriptions, guys. So hopefully that will be something we put in there, is to help you with erosion control.
Awesome. All right. So I'm actually getting to the last of the pre-submitted questions. And then I do see, Susan, I do see your hand. If you want to type in that question for me, we can get to you. Or actually, let me do this. I'm going to allow you to talk.
Oh boy, getting crazy.
All right. So Susan, are you with us, Susan Mason?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I'd raised my hand, but I do have a
Yes.
question. Do you have any dwarf oaks or dwarf native trees that you've worked with? I've read recently about the chinquapin oak, if I'm saying that, the dwarf one. I was wondering if you had any experience with that or any other small oaks to recommend. Thank you.
We sell like 15 to 20 different types of oaks at our tree sale. We do sell a chinquapin. We have a Georgia oak. I believe that's a pretty small one. Yeah, there are. Christy, can you think of? I'm trying to think of oaks off the hand that are really small. Running oak, that's like kind of a more shrubby.
Chinquapin is not. Yeah, chinquapin is not a small oak. They get massive. And they're pretty particular. They only like rocky slopes. So
there's a dwarf
I would talk
that I've seen.
Oh, is there? So
it's supposed to get 12 to 18 feet tall. Yeah.
So in my experience, I don't like to recommend a dwarf or specialized species of anything until 10 to 15 years after it's been introduced into the landscape, because in my experience, they don't do what everybody says they're going to do. I think the Bradford pear is a great example of that. So is the little gem magnolia. I mean, they were, oh my gosh, it's this little magnolia and they're the best tree in the world, and they're sparse and they never look healthy and they're just not great trees. So my suggestion was to you is to find a landscaper that is not just a designer, but is experienced in trees over time in the landscape. Like maybe a small company that actually he has a small install part, but he's been doing maintenance for years, because he's going to be the one that's really going to know how they respond in the environment. Like Cryptomeria Nana is another example. It was supposed to be this dwarf Cryptomeria, and I'm having people call me and want them removed because they're 10 foot tall. So I can't even think of any that have actually proven themselves as a landscape as a dwarf tree, other than the ones that we know are dwarf, the Japanese maple, those trees, the golden rain tree, those trees.
Yeah, Susan, I think too, if you are trying to plant a tree and you've got a small area, maybe keeping what Christy was saying, keeping to our understory trees already that we've got, and we know they're established well and they're beneficial to the plants and the other animals out there. That could be a better option than trying to, experiment with a dwarf oak tree. Because oak trees are big. There are big trees, guys, here. I mean, we've got a few of them, but oaks are massive ones. And so we do want to get them to be big and tall. So I don't know, the running oak is a smaller, shrubby kind of oak, if that may suffice with what you're trying to do. But yeah, there are dwarf versions of the chinquapin, but they might not be the best. I believe we do sell them at our tree sale though. So hopefully, we're supporting good ones.
But also the blackjack oak is, I think, at maturity 25 feet tall, and it's tough as nails, but it is not pretty. It is not a pretty oak. In my opinion, it is not a pretty oak.
Yeah, and from my experience in Florida, there are smaller oaks there, but again, they survive in sandy soils, and here in the Piedmont, Georgia, we don't necessarily have that. So, planting what is in the area and what is native here is, important for that. Cool. Thank you, Susan.
All right, I have a question here. This is an interesting one. I wanted to ask about a neighbor's branch that is hanging over my yard. Am I able to ask for it to be pruned? I'd really love to plant a veggie garden around that spot, but wasn't sure of the rules or etiquette or how to check if this would be an appropriate cut to make on a tree.
So this is a super common question that I deal with. So it is actually your responsibility to prune your neighbor's tree if it is over your airspace. So it is actually your responsibility to prune that branch. However, you have to prune that tree according to industry standards, meaning you have to do it correctly. You can't just cut to the property line. You cannot remove more than 20% of a leaf surface in a season from a tree. You cannot remove large branches from trees unless there's a reason why. And also, as far as putting a vegetable garden under there, were you planning on tilling it? Because if you go underground and you damage your neighbor's roots, you can also be in trouble for hurting their tree. So you probably, I live in a neighborhood of great neighbors, and I love great neighbors. And so I would go have a conversation and involve an arborist or, a tree company that's led by an arborist to let you know what you really can do to not harm this tree.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that other than to just talk to your neighbors and see and get an arborist out there to make that recommendation. And, if you can enjoy that shade, but does it need to be cut? Is there another spot on your land that you can put the veggie garden? I know in the city it's kind of different. Christie, I have a follow-up. Have you seen any differences in tree ordinances in the cities that you work with on that kind of regard?
So yes, almost every tree ordinance covers how you're supposed to prune the tree, meaning City of Atlanta specifies no more than 20% per season. Brookhaven is about to start ticketing homeowners and landscapers for committing crepe murder because that is tree topping. So they are taking it a little bit further. So, and I have had people my clients fined in the city of Atlanta for pruning more than 20% of the leaf surface, a live leaf surface in a season. So, this is why it is important to work with an arborist when you're doing tree work and not just a tree cutting company. We're held to higher ethics. We actually have to go do CEUs and learn and continue to learn about what we're learning about trees, because what we think about trees changes almost every year as we learn more and more, just like humans and medicine, right? So, please use the guys that are doing the CEUs. Please use the companies that are supporting the industry. And when you have a tree company in your yard, please make sure they're in hard hats, safety glasses. I mean, we're dangerous enough. Don't perpetuate that by not letting your guys work in your yard without PPE. But now stepping off my soapbox.
All right, cool. We actually have a comment from someone in the audience about going back to the hackberries, about reminding everyone treating hackberry trees for the honeydew dropping aphids kills all the butterfly caterpillars that feed on those hackberry leaves. You guys want to make any more comments about that?
I support what Christie said, is don't do it while flowering is occurring. You got to do it after fruiting and flowering.
And then the pesticide is in the leaf, so that the only insect it affects are ones that puncture and suck the chlorophyll out of the leaf. Caterpillars do not feed on hackberries. Not in my experience in 14 years of being in yards and dealing with trees, I have very rarely seen a caterpillar issue on a hackberry. In fact, I've never have. The orange-striped oakworm is what people usually talk about, and that usually attacks southern red oaks.
Okay. We have a question here. Is it true that the City of Atlanta's tree ordinance says that the city can cut down a tree covered in ivy? I'm helping my neighbor with invasive removal, and we appropriately cut ivy back from some trees that the city then came and marked for removal, even though the ivy will die off in a few months.
No, that's not true. There must be something else wrong with the tree.
Yeah, in my experience with ivy is it can kind of ruin the structure of the tree. So maybe that's what's going on. Maybe they feel like the tree structure is no longer sound. But it does sound like there's something else going on there. Definitely removing the ivy is a great source. I just want to plug too, we have a forest stewards class that teaches you how to do this properly without, hurting the tree, grating into the bark of it. But I also just, a quick little fact about it, don't try to pull the ivy off, cut it about from your eye level down and let it die and decay on its own. It may look ugly for a few hot months, but definitely don't try to pull it. That could pull the limbs down onto you. Be safe about it. Remove your ivy. Be mindful of where the bark is, where the ivy stops and the tree starts. But other than that, yeah, it's great that you're removing your ivy, but it does sound like there's something else going on with the tree beyond that. And a good, if you're in the city of Atlanta, uses a sellout, and you can look on their website if there's some kind of permitting or approval through the Arborist Division about those trees. So that could be a resource for you guys to look up that. There's also, in Dana, I don't know if we have access to the phone number, but there is a phone number hotline that will send out in your area any permits that do occur on any of the properties too. So you can stay up to date by just receiving a text message. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's a new thing.
Great. So yeah, we'll get you that resource. Someone asked for that phone number. When we send this recording back out, we'll send it also with the resource of the phone numbers that we talked about, and also contact information for both Tabitha and Christie.
Thanks, Dana.
So with that said, it looks like all the questions have been answered. Oh, wait, someone snuck in there. All right, it says, I'd love to hear of any of your personal favorite fruit trees from planting in the city of Atlanta. We are considering Asian persimmon, fig, pomegranate, pawpaw. Curious of any favorites that grow best. I've heard mixed success with apples. Anything else you recommend for or against backyard gardens?
So I live actually in Chosewood, which is an edible neighborhood. We actually wrote and received a grant, and you can walk around Chosewood and you can pick apples, plums, pears, muscadines, all different kinds of herbs. In front of my house, I have 2 apple trees and 2 plum trees. The plums are like effortless. I don't have to do anything. However, there's this really weird disease of trees that's called apple cedar rust. And so if you plant an apple.
Okay, so you went on mute.
All right, guys. If you have an apple tree too close to a cedar tree, the apple gets infected with like a fungus, a rust, and it can really affect the apple trees. And don't even try a peach tree. They're nothing but a disappointment. I mean, peach growers in Georgia struggle with growing peach. So don't even try. Pecans, Atlanta loves pecan trees. And if you don't believe me, just drive around and look. But yeah, I mean, plums are just like effortless.
Yeah, I was gonna second the Chickasaw plum. They're so delicious, guys. Man, they're delicious. And service berries too. They're very delicious and pretty plentiful on those trees, even the younger trees. So great. When we're doing tree data checks or tree inventory checks, we definitely grab some Chickasaws and some service berries as we're out there and eat them. And you guys must be thinking about lunch like I am.
Do very well.
Pawpaws,
Yeah,
fig
pawpaws
trees.
do well, but it takes them like 20 years to produce a fruit. So be patient.
Yeah, that is one thing you might see it not fruiting for a while. In some of the trees, you need 2 of them in order to produce the fruit. So just whatever you're looking at, making sure that you've got the right, like blueberries need them. I believe plums need them too. You need 2 to produce it. And it doesn't, with blueberries, you don't necessarily need the exact same blueberry. I think you need the species similar, but you do need them to like cross-pollinate to get them. So if you're looking at doing you know, those trees and planting a fruit forest, that's awesome. It's great. Just look into the details about whether or not you need 2 of them. I mean, to definitely get you double the fruit too. So
All right, cool. Those are some great recommendations. And we actually are doing a bare root seedling giveaway tomorrow and Friday, and we will have pawpaws and chinquapin oaks. Not the dwarf ones, but just the the regular one. If you want to start with a seedling, so those will take a little bit longer. We'll also
Are they
have
small enough to bonsai?
it might be.
Are they small enough to bonsai? Ah.
It's possible. I know we have some that are really, really small. I'll have to look when I get back to the office. But Christy, if you are going to be back, I know you're out of town. If there's any that you want to see, I can send you a picture.
yeah, Christy,
Please, save me 2 small ones. I'll be back tomorrow night.
they're usually about 2 feet
I'll be
tall,
back
I
Friday.
think.
That'll be
We
fine.
have some that are 2 feet, but we have some that are actually a lot smaller too this year.
Oh, okay, good.
Cool. All right. All right. I think that's it, guys. This was a wonderful first Ask the Arborist session. And we had a lot of great questions, a lot of great answers. Thank you so much, Tabitha and Christy. And I look forward to doing this again. And if you guys have any questions that you think of after all this is finished, feel free to send us an email and we'll send them on over. And again, we'll send you the recording of this along with contact information and resources that we talked about during today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you have a good rest of Georgia Arbor Week.
Thank you, guys. Don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you.